Welcome back to Magazine Minute. I'm here with John Larabell, who's a writer and editor for the New American Magazine. And in the latest issue, he wrote a cover story package entitled Scandinavia's Successful Socialism and the Happiest People on Earth. So John, with everything being free, socialism seems like such a great idea. So what do you think are the main problems when it comes to healthcare, education, and taxes that people should be concerned about?
Well, that's a great question, Constance. The biggest thing is, we hear that a lot. Everything's free. Everybody gets covered. It's really wonderful. We should do that here. The thing about the Scandinavian countries that a lot of people don't realize is that the way they pay for that is by taxing the middle class and the lower class people very heavily. It's not just a tax on the rich. Like you see people here say, well, let's tax the rich, then we can pay for everybody's government benefits. That's not enough money. It doesn't work that way. There's very heavy taxes on the middle class. Even on working class people pay taxes higher than what most Americans would pay. That's one problem. Second problem is a lot of the programs they have there really aren't always the best quality. It's true that everybody does get coverage, but the coverage isn't always that great. One example with healthcare is they're notorious for very, very long waiting lines. And people even die waiting to get in to see a specialist.
Especially for the summer, right?
Yeah, and you'd see that in the first article, the Scandinavia Successful Socialism question. And with the education, there's even being some changes where they're starting to make these things not free for everybody, okay? Like foreign students are having to pay tuition in Denmark and Sweden now. And even the healthcare, a lot of people are starting to take out their own private insurance to supplement the government-run insurance because they want better coverage. So there are problems with this system that a lot of people don't realize, that it would be very difficult to implement here. And we're going to pay for it with a lot higher taxes. It's not just the rich people that pay for it.
Since Bernie Sanders is getting really, really popular, or was, considering he was a Democratic nominee, can you expand on why education should or should not be free?
Well, yeah, that's a big thing that Sanders is very popular among particularly young people for promoting free college or government-funded college for everyone, and now Hillary Clinton has kind of taken up that mantle, even though at first she criticized it, saying it wouldn't work. Now that she's the nominee, she's saying she's going to do it. A big problem with it, it sounds great. I mean, what college student wouldn't want the government to completely fund their education? A problem with that is, and they do that in the Scandinavian countries, it's extremely expensive, okay? Somebody's going to have to pay for that. And it's, again, like I said earlier with the healthcare, it's not just the rich. Middle-class people pay for it. And what you see with Scandinavian countries is that doesn't necessarily increase the enrollment, okay? The idea is, well, wow, if we can have free college for everybody, then everybody would go.
Right.
And all these people that don't have an education because they can't afford it, well, they'd be able to go to college. You don't really see that in those countries. The college attending rates for parents that don't attend college and their kids not going to college is about the same as it is here. It's still a very low rate of students attending college if their parents did not go to college. And it's about the same as it is in America in those countries where you have parents who went to college, their kids are going to be more likely to go to college. It's about the same rate. It doesn't really encourage more college attendance. And again, because it's funded by taxes, almost 100%. Here it's about 35% government funded. Over there it's in the 90%, 95, 96%. The problem with that is even if you don't go to college, you're still paying for it.
Right.
Whereas here, if you don't go, you don't pay for it. So it doesn't necessarily increase college enrollment. And a big problem is, say hypothetically that everybody did go to college and every single person had a college degree. A degree would be almost worthless. It'd be like a high school diploma. So it does sound really good, but it isn't necessarily the best way to run things. And I don't think it would be very difficult to do it here.
So how do Scandinavian countries make socialism work? Do you think that it's really a success story that Americans should strive for?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And what I found, researching this and talking to a lot of people who've lived in Scandinavia, doing a lot of research, they do make it work, but it doesn't work as well as a lot of Americans might think. And a big thing, especially with their economies, is prior to, say, the 1960s or 1970s, they did not have the full-blown socialism like they do today. Okay, it was more of a free market type economy with a lot less of the social welfare programs. And those countries were, particularly Sweden and Denmark, were very, very successful. They had very, very wealthy societies, some of the world's wealthiest people per capita. Okay, and once they implemented the social welfare system in the 60s and 70s, they had so much built up economic strength, they were able to kind of coast along for a while. But once you started seeing the end of the 20th century, 80s and 90s, they started having problems. A lot of business was curtailed quite a bit. New businesses were not being started. They had very, very high corporate taxes. And it really stifled a lot of innovation and business growth. So they started implementing market reforms, started lowering corporate taxes, cutting some of the welfare state benefits because it wasn't working. And it's working better today because they've made some cuts. And the issue with Norway that's different is they did not industrialize as quickly, but in the late 60s they discovered oil. A lot of people know that now. Oil is a big part of Norway's economy. They haven't made a lot of the market reforms because so much of their money comes from their oil. And really, so you can say that big oil is really funding Norway's welfare state. And because of that, they've been able to kind of coast along with that. But, in the event that oil runs out or they're not able to sell as much, they're going to have to make some cuts too, just like Denmark and Sweden are. So is it something I think we could do here? I don't think so. Our government is just way too corrupt, and we have way too big of a population. I mean, these countries are all under 10 million people. Norway is like barely 5 million people, about the population of Colorado. So funding a system with that low of a population is not as difficult.
So why do you feel that culture instead of big government is the main reason why Scandinavian people are the happiest people on earth?
Well, yeah, a lot of the world happiness surveys place Scandinavian countries pretty high. Denmark sometimes is number one, usually, and Norway and Sweden are a little below that. A big part of that, I feel, is their culture. It's not because of big government implements socialism, therefore the people are happy. It's more Scandinavian countries have a very homogenous culture, and they have almost a very conformist culture where it's kind of go along to get along, don't rock the boat, everybody's the same. It kind of keeps people in that mold, okay? And it lends itself to kind of one-size-fits-all socialist government. I don't think it would work here, no, because America is just way too big, way too culturally diverse, and we celebrate diversity so much, and we don't believe in conformity. We want to be different. We want to stand out, and our government is way too corrupt. I mean, those countries are known for having very low corruption in their government because they have such a homogenous society. That culture was like an underlying bedrock to build the welfare state on, and not the other way around. So the government and the welfare and the socialism doesn't make the good society. The good society led to that. That's why I don't think it would work here.
Thanks, John, for taking the time to sit down with us. If you want to learn more about Scandinavian socialism, you can get your copy at shopjbs.org.